Welcome to the String Theory of the Unexplained. I'm your host, John Ventry. Your co-host is Fred Saluga, and our returning guest is Aurora. And today we're going to talk about being among the dead. What happens when you die? Welcome to the show. All right, let's get started here, Fred. I came across something in a book. It wasn't in the book we're going to talk about, but it said that there are two or more entities in every human being. Because everybody has like a split personality, right? You got a temper. You can be nice. You could be not nice. You could be good. You could be evil. It's almost like there's two people in everybody.
I'm good.
You know, sometimes you do stuff when people aren't looking, or you think you can get away with it, right? But so I read this book, 30 Years Among the Dead, right?
Wow.
You can see it on the screen, but this is the version I bought. And it's written by a psychiatrist, Dr. Carl Wicklund. So it talks about what do the dead say. So what really happens and what do the dead say? And I tell you, this is some of the creepiest stories I've read. Remember at the MUFON conference here, at the Q&A at the end, I brought it up, and one of the girls, said, I read that book too. Creepy, creepy book, and it kind of changed what I think of about dying. Because with all the stuff that happened here, it's some entity, something in the house. I wasn't really afraid ever, and I'm not afraid to die. Yeah. But now it's like, I don't want to die. After we talk about this and reading this book, it's like, holy, it ain't no fun to be dead. Like, you ain't going to the paradise. It's going to be years and years of misery and being in the darkness. So let's talk about this. So this and it comes up in a couple other, these psychiatrists and mediums who do this type of regret stuff, they're the ones saying it. So in 1920s, this psychiatrist, Chicago, it talks about what do the dead say. So what really happens and what do the dead say? And I tell you, this is some of the creepiest stories I've read. Remember at the MUFON conference here, at the Q&A at the end, I brought it up, and one of the girls, said, I read that book too. Creepy, creepy book, and it kind of changed what I think of about dying. Because with all the stuff that happened here, it's some entity, something in the house. I wasn't really afraid ever, and I'm not afraid to die. But now it's like, I don't want to die. After we talk about this and reading this book, it's like, holy, it ain't no fun to be dead. Like, you ain't going to the paradise. It's going to be years and years of misery and being in the darkness. So let's talk about this. So this and it comes up in a couple other, these psychiatrists and mediums who do this type of regret stuff, they're the ones saying it. So in 1920s, this psychiatrist, Chicago psychiatrist, so he's not a psychologist, he's a psychiatrist, Carl Wicklund, he would treat troubled patients that felt that they had spirit attachments to them. And what he would do is, his wife was a medium, so they would do a threesome there, and the wife would, I guess what happens, you let the entity enter you as the medium, or you channel it. What actually, how does the medium get contact?
It depends. Now, some mediums will open themselves up and have a full channel. I never allow that. I want to be in control. I've had it happen, but I choose when it happens. When I contact, or I have spirits contact me or what have you, it's usually I see them, I can hear them, sometimes in my head, sometimes I get a visual, sometimes it's clairaudient, and sometimes it's telepathic, but it's just being able to speak with them and communicating. So. And
that's real. Even Fred, the next episode is supposed to be on the Pope's exorcist, but Gabriel Amorth, he said that some people are gifted and some people do have those abilities you talk of, but then there's so many frauds out there, or people that contact the dark side to be able to do it, and then you pay a price. But some people are just born that way, is what he was saying. So, so then what he would do, as the medium speaks through his wife, he would explain to them they're dead, which they didn't know, and tell them what they need to do and how to get out of the situation they're in, because you're kind of stuck in this limbo area, and we're going to get into that. So basically, he was a ghost whisperer is what he was, talking to these dead people. So he said that the spirit and the physical world intermingle. And I think we all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
There's spirits, the ghost hunt, all of that. So much of this stuff is real, and the regular world, which we say is the real world, but it's not the real world. They won't agree with it, They don't accept it. But this is the real world, what we're talking about. And he says the spirit continues after death. I agree with that, right? Now, here's what he starts to say happens, that what will happen is you fall into a deep sleep, right? You can become confused and you're in a darkness, right? So if you remember that from the Bible, Saul, remember with Rhonda when we did a show a couple of times, she brought up Saul contacting Samuel. And when he did it, Samuel was all upset. And he said, "Why did you wake me? I was in a deep sleep." So that supports what he's saying. It's like you die and you wander, but you could also fall into this deep sleep for years. You know what I think? I just had this thought. What if you fall into the deep sleep until somebody thinks about you? If nobody ever, let's say you don't have any kids or grandkids, right? So at the point that nobody remembers Grandpa, you're in the deep sleep. For maybe ever, for a long time, till the resurrection, right? But if you're somebody that, you have kids, grandkids, they'll say, well, what did Grandpa, or you're an actor, right? We always say you never die if you're on film, right? Although you talk to young people, silent movies, black and white movies, nobody knows anything about them anymore. But, that thought just came into my head here. He also said that you get very confused, you're in the darkness. These spirits then attach to the aura of humans, and so do demons, right? He didn't say demons, I'm saying that. But whatever this color, this aura, something you give off attracts, and it attracts certain types, right? So they select similar personalities. And the problem is they make your vices worse. So, if that spirit was an alcoholic, they'll look for a drinker because, that's similar to me. They attach to him, and now the guy's got twice as bad problem. Same thing with drugs and a lot of other vices. That's what happens. He says the bulk of these are not demons. Demon possession is totally different. It causes actually, if you have demon possession, you have illnesses that come with it. These are more vices and personality changes.
That's why we never drink when we go ghost hunting.
Well, you don't want to attract them. Yeah.
We never drink.
Yeah. So it causes personality changes, suicide, and criminality. You get a spirit of a criminal, and now they bring their personality in and kind of melds with you, and you start doing some of these things, and next thing you know, you're doing things you shouldn't be doing. Spirits feel what you feel. So apparently when you're dead, obviously they can't feel nothing, or the emotion part maybe might not be there, but they feel what you feel. And remember, Fred, when I read that in the book, first thing I thought of was 2010, my daughter. Remember the story?
Yeah.
She went in the basement and got a bottle of water. Something standing behind her, malevolent. The hairs on her neck went up. She went upstairs, laid down, and next thing, and she was awake the whole time. She was awake before she went to get the water. She laid down and something pressed into her body.
Right.
And it hurt, pressing into her entire body, and then she was surrounded by spirit, shadow people. And what do people become? Shadows, shades, is what the Greeks used to call them, these shadow people. And the thing, Fred, that she said that I did, which is 100% why I believed her, is she said she heard all these voices in her head as she was laying there stiff, could move her eyes. And the one standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame, she could see it, the shadow, said, when you're done with her, let's try out the other two.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
My son and his fiancée in the next room, right? Nobody would use those words. Let's try out the other two.
Right.
So it was totally true, and it goes along with this. Spirits feel what you feel. And you know the thing I also thought, and I said, you know what I said to my daughter when that first happened? I said to her, Vanessa, it's probably just ghosts.
Yeah.
And maybe everybody, when you go to sleep at night and it's your dreams, a spirit actually comes into your body to feel alive again, to breathe, to have feeling, and then they leave when you wake up, let's say. That might be what actually happens because they don't have feelings.
But see, so therefore now you don't have free will.
You have,
They-
well,
no, you
it's
don't.
still
If
your
there's
will.
gonna be a spirit getting in your body and you're going to start doing what the spirit
We'll
does.
talk,
Then,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
The strength of the spirit can repress you. You're still there, but it's the spirit taking over. You know, you're still separate. You're still
Okay.
separate. When I said you meld, that's not true. You can have some of their memories and their vices and feelings and stuff, but it's who's the stronger personality is what takes over. So, you know, what he says though is now, in my own thoughts, is that these attachments, if this is all true that he's saying, this explains people having past lives because you're remembering the other spirit's life.
Right.
Deja vu, right? Well, yeah, it happened before because that other person, it happened to them too. Being able to talk in different languages, right? So spirits, they start to forget. The longer that you're dead, there's an amnesia that takes over you. The longer that you're lost, right? The other thing he said is they don't know they're dead. None of these know that they actually died. And these are some creepy stories in here of the guy trying to figure out what's going on. It's because he's been dead. And just the way he words it, I mean, you can make movies out of every one of these stories. You know, he's doing things, and then it turns out, well, yeah, you're dead. That's why. It's like the, what was it, The Sixth Sense that you had mentioned? It's exactly like that. The other thing is, you know, the spirit will say, I don't understand this. Like, say it's a woman, right? She goes, I look at my hands and they're so big. I have hair on my arms. Or if it's a man, I have long hair. It's like, why do I have long hair? You know, I don't never have long hair. I don't have any hair. You know, they don't realize that they're dead. And the other thing is, they can start changing your type of sex. If a female spirit connects to a
What's I'm
male.
saying? You got a transgender.
That's exactly. You
So
hit it
you
on
can
the head.
actually have a
That's what he says.
They don't really
Yeah.
want to be a transgender.
I think it's a
but-
different. I don't think he said that, but one of the other books did say that.
Yeah.
You know, that's where that comes from, right? But the stronger the spirit can imprison the weaker one, right? They talked about, well, I've walked all day. I'm so tired, and I don't go anywhere. I'm still where I'm at. You know, like they're walking in circles. They said that I look at people and I try talking to them. They don't reply to me, and they look like wax. Like I'm looking at these people, and they look like mannequins to me, and none of them ever reply, right? And what they all say, well, the Bible says you wander in the outer darkness. That's what Jesus said. You wander in the outer darkness when you die. And they're all in darkness, wandering around. Then they see light, and they see other spirits that they bump into, and they're able to talk to them. Most of them don't know what year it is. Like this was in the 1920s. And, you know, he would say to them, what year is it? And they would say 1888. And he'd say, it's 1923. It's 1926. No way. Yeah. So 30, 40, 50 years go by. These people don't know that they're dead. So then he gets into it, and he took a lot of what I think is Christianity and spun it and paralleled what's really in the Bible. But he says you must forgive in order to move on. If you got any bad energy, if you hate, if you're angry, you want to get even, you got to let it all go.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get stuck in this middle ground, this darkness area, right?
Be purgatory.
Yeah, well, yeah, even the whole purgatory story, it's similar in a lot of ways, right? So you can get a tormenting spirit, and that can cause you violent behavior. You got to remember, the best spirits, when you die, if you're a really good person, you're not in this darkness, right? Because you moved on, whether that's heaven or whatever it is. So really, when you're ghost hunting, and almost every spirit you're dealing with are people that are neither really bad or really good, let's say, right? Because they're not in the outer darkness. They didn't go to heaven or hell. So you're dealing with that middle road. He says that haunted houses are full of spirits, and a lot of times seeking revenge, because a lot of times those people died in those houses, you know, so they're seeking revenge. And what he describes, Fred, and I said to myself, and I've done, this is 10, 15 books I've read. All this stuff happened here. And we've talked about it, it's in my book, right? You get nightly rappings, tapping sounds, creaking sounds, banging sounds, objects rattling, etc. And every time I read it in a book, I smile and I say, I'm not crazy. It happened here, and there were witnesses, you know? And all these other people, witnesses in their stories.
Have you ever checked the house here? I mean,
I got a story for you. We can get to it.
Oh, okay.
When I get to that point, I'm going to tell you what happened about 6 weeks ago. So, what he's describing, really, if you remember the movies, What Dreams May Come, remember Robin Williams, his wife passes away. Because it was a suicide, the longer she was in this area, and where she went, remember when he went, it was heaven. It was all bright and beautiful. The longer she was there, it was getting darker, right? And she was losing her memories. She would recognize them, then she'd say, who are you? You know, and that's what they describe in all of this is you start to lose your memories and forget, and then you go into this deep sleep. I am not looking forward to dying. Because I thought, I'm, you know, hopefully you're going to a better place. And then there's the Insidious movie. Remember that? I tell you, when I saw that in whatever it was, 2010, I said, I think this guy hit it. Because remember, he went to save his son, and he went into this darkness, and there were just people wandering, and it's dark. And then there's demons, the demon playing the organ and all of that, and you're kind of hiding from it. And I think that's exactly what this guy's describing here, you know? And I think he probably got it right. So this guy Wicklund, like most of these psychiatrists, didn't believe in Christianity, heaven or hell. He said he did not believe in the devil or the Bible's God or a six-day creation. He said it's all poetry and stories. And then he says, well, if Christ died for my sins, wouldn't that prevent me from repenting? He already took all my sins. But he misses the whole point. You don't get away with anything. You got to believe and you got to repent. So, but you see that, like I said, in medical professionals, scientists, they don't believe. You know, they will never say the Bible version is correct. He says the biggest problem with these people when they're stuck is their own selfishness. That caused them to get stuck in the spirit world for a long time because they can't let go and they're selfish.
Well, some are also afraid. Some people, when they die, it's so sudden they don't realize.
Oh yeah, none of them realize they're dead.
Yeah, that they're dead. Some people are afraid. That's why you have a lot of your monasteries or your nunneries. You're talking like you see the monks and stuff. Even though they might have been very, very pious and they lived to the letter of what that Bible said, okay, they're still afraid of going into some minor indiscretion. They're going to go to hell and brimstone. So there is a lot of fear. There's some people that are angry and they just can't let go, or they've had, once again, someone that's been an severe alcoholic or drug addict. They'll be lost and they'll cling on to somebody and then feed off of them, so that they're still getting that feeling. Right. And that,
yeah, that's exactly what
so
he's
they'll
saying.
destroy the other person. It's almost like they have a host.
Yeah.
You know. So the darkness, and that's the other thing too that I've noticed, that you know, some of these people that come through that are being born, and it's almost like they're on like some lower level. It's because they haven't taken time to cleanse, and they're just cycling through like one of those doors in Pittsburgh. They just go round and round and round. They don't want to. They just keep jumping from body to body to body until you know. So. But yeah, sometimes people just don't know that they're deceased.
So before you die, you really got to come to terms with everything, and you got to let go of all of it. It was like for years, Fred, I was so angry with my ex-wife, you know, and I finally got to the point now where it doesn't matter anymore, and you know, and I kind of look at her and I feel sorry for her more. You know, it was her decision, and you know, it didn't work out well for her, and I don't have that dislike and anger anymore.
Missouri, maybe you
that's what the kids want. She just moved to where they are, and they're hoping Daddy comes and he can take care of Mama. And I don't think that's going to happen. But so anyway, he says you got to live for others, you got to serve the poor, you got to be happy. So one of the things a comment he makes is capital punishment, Fred. If you're put to death in capital punishment, and even in the old days you were hung, right? They shot you as firing squad. Those spirits are the worst because they seek revenge. because they're so angry at how they died, how
Right.
what they did to them, how painful. Those, when they attach to you, boy, they cause you a lot of trouble, right? He says criminals continue their former activities through people. They call them disembodied spirits, control and can actually possess people. And some of the things that people said was no idea. Let's see, no idea why you said. Oh, people will say that I have no idea why I did that, right? It's because you got this spirit attached to you. That's why it happens. Or people will say the devil made me do that, right? Or you think about you're at the casino and you place that last bet and you lose $500. Why'd I do that, right? Took that one extra drink and now you're incoherent and you can't drive. And it's all this is what he's saying. It comes from the attachment that's on you.
We just had somebody you know really well, used to work allegedly for Ups, I don't want to say their name.
Yeah.
And we had him on our show one time.
Okay.
He wrote another book, all pictures in it. And he says at the end that he sold his soul to the devil.
He said knowingly.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in trouble then.
Oh yeah, he says he sold his soul to the devil.
And I think that these actors, these politicians, I think many of the famous people, that's exactly what they did. I believe that 100%.
And I told him, I said, dude, you don't even say that, man. He said, oh, no, Fred, I did.
Oh, I think they did. I think they knowingly did it. They didn't just say it out of frustration and stress. Oh, if you could only do this.
Yeah.
I think they wanted it, is what they did. But he says that these evil spirits can break up happy homes, families,
I
right?
believe that.
Well, that's what happened with my wife. She became a totally different person. Now, whether that was a demonic, and I think our encounters turned out to be demonic or a spirit, she became a totally different person. I used to say, I don't know who this person is. This ain't my wife.
But then again, like I say, we have no free will, man. If the spirit can come into my body,
It's all influence, but you still can make a decision. You always can say no.
It depends.
Just say no. Remember when Reagan said that? Just say no. So, the soul retains their habits and desires, and they seek a similar person. Then he talked about Madame Blavatsky. You're familiar with Madame Blavatsky, Theosophy and the universal knowledge, New Age movement. But one of the things he said was she always believed in reincarnation because it's Eastern philosophy. So, and I don't believe this guy one bit in this. It's almost like she was competition. So he says, we channeled Madame Blavatsky and she admitted she was wrong. Yeah, right. But he wanted it to be that.
Right.
That's why some of the stuff he says, even about religion and Christianity, I say, you're full of it, But he says, depending on the person you get, how they died, if they died in a car accident, head trauma, they attach to you. Now you're having vertigo. You're having head trauma. You're having problems with your leg or your back because they did. It says it really affects a lot of people based on the way the spirit died, right?
Christ, like all them,
all the problems you did, all the problems you have. He says a person's aura can trap them.
Yeah.
And, and he says most of the spirits actually get trapped. Only the real strong ones can pull out of a person and keep moving on. But a lot of the weaker ones, when they attach, they're trapped now in that person, right? Some of the spirits are actually aware of their abilities and they actually continue doing it, knowing that they're screwing with you. He says your past accuses you. When you're freed, you can see the real spirit world, right? Once you've letting everything go, you pull out of this darkness that you're in. It's almost like going to purgatory to get cleansed, and then you go to heaven. It's a lot of similarity, let's say. And he says, Fred, we all have free will. No matter what happens here, if you're focused enough, you can make the right decisions. You just got to recognize that something is influencing you. And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Like you might get angry and say something on Facebook, like I did. Was that me, or was it the attachment that made me say that? And that's what he's saying. You got to stop yourself and say,
I got
not going to do that.
I got a thing right here with my daughter. Okay, she's a druggie. All right, now, did she steal my guns, or did they steal my guns?
Well, did they make her?
Did the addiction steal?
Oh, the addiction.
So you're looking at the demon right there.
Right.
I mean, don't really give a, whatever happens. I mean,
Well, that's why in an exorcism, all the things that the person does. You don't see the exorcist put his MMA gloves on and start pounding the crap out of it, because it's the person. It's the demon doing it. It ain't the person doing it. So smacking the crap out of the possessed person isn't going to accomplish anything. It's not them, So he says there's different planes to the spirit world. You're punished by your conscience. And he said a lot of these people that he encountered are religious people, or they described religious people who are stuck now in the darkness based on their beliefs, what they expected to happen. Like I just said, what I expected to happen is different than what I'm reading here. I would then be stuck because I'm waiting for this, my grandfather to come, or some to take you, and that ain't happening. That's not what happens, he says. So your beliefs now can get you stuck. So he said, Bible thumpers are the ones that end up, they just sit and they pray. They repeat their prayers waiting for something to happen. Mischievous spirits can trick you and pretend they're angels. Well, we've been told in the Bible, demons can do that. The devil can do that. You must see your ways and realize before you can be freed.
But getting back to what you said too, about you waiting for grandpa or grandma.
Well, I expect to meet somebody,
Every near-death experience that I've heard, they've met somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, so it has to be the same as when you die. I mean, you have to meet somebody.
See, some of those you have to believe that the near-death experience is always positive.
Yeah.
But
maybe always positive.
No, not always.
Well, let's say 90%. The
bulk. 75%.
I think it's more than that. But maybe because it's near death, it's not your time. So who you went to meet, you do meet somebody, and then it's like you got to go back. That type of thing. But when it is your time, it's not a near-death experience.
But
you keep going.
If you talk to people who work in hospices and that, the person will talk to a dead person 90% of the time before they die.
Right.
So we're talking now, what he's saying, a bunch of bull, because they're actually seeing somebody that they know, a relative, a friend, or whatever, that's taking them across to the other side. But they're not going across the other side by themselves. They're being helped across.
Being a psychic medium and a sensitive, okay, I have been truly blessed in the opportunity to cross spirits that are stuck over into the other side. And there's always someone waiting for them, always. I recently had to cross over a young woman who had been murdered. She didn't know what was going on, where she was at. And I sat down, I talked with her. I said, the light is there, it's open. And her brother was waiting for her, and so was her grandmother. And I've also, like in my experience, I've been with family members prior to their death and as they are dying. And there are always people there waiting for them.
Yeah, that's what
but maybe it's like here, it says different planes of the spirit world. For some, you go straight to heaven. For some, you go straight to hell. For some, you go to purgatory. For some, you're meeting. I just think that there's 8 different possibilities, let's say, and that's what it is. Yeah. That's why they're not all the same. They're very different is what they are.
Because there was an individual, her father had died. He had done some nasty things, and he was in purgatory. And I could see family members on the other side trying to get him to pay attention. We're here for you. We're here for you. And it took him probably almost a year, our time, because there is no time on the other side. Right. But on our time, for him to actually heal and move out of purgatory and see that he had family waiting for him, and knowing that he could make
and that's what he says.
Yeah.
It takes, and then he convinces them
but
like
also,
a ghost whisperer.
So when he was at my daughter's house, the lady that hung herself.
Yes.
Okay, so this happened back in the 19, early hundreds, right?
Yes.
So now, she'd been diddy-bopping around on the other side for quite some time. But when you talk to her, she still had relatives from, say, the 1800s there.
Yes.
So again, you're looking at it like that. Yeah, I believe there's always somebody there waiting for you. My own personal belief.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you have your soul groups. So a lot of your soul groups. I've been studying reincarnation since I was 7. So 40 some years. I've read a lot of books. I've studied, and what have you. I've had, I'm a certified hypnotist. I've done regression. I've done my own regressions. I've had regression done with past life regression for myself. I've been fortunate to have instantaneous past life memories and what have you. but you always have your soul group that they're not going to reincarnate until everybody is there. You basically sit down, you are taught, or you go, it's almost like being in a school. What are we going to do? How are we going to, who's going to take on this role? Who's going to do that role? So you have family that's always there waiting for you, or close friends.
So what is a loner who has no kids, no family?
There's,
Well, you're talking about past family, right?
Right.
Everybody got parents.
But you always have an angel. You always have your spirit guide. There's always a guardian angel that's there waiting for you, because everyone has at least one.
Wait, so it's the same thing at first here now. So there's a person up in Butler, okay? When me and her first seen each other, it was like instant attraction, okay? So I said, I don't know why I like you so much. He said, the same here, Fred. She's married and, has kids. So she went and seen a psychic, and they said, there's a guy out there, his name is Fred. You've been married to him 7 times. So now, is there an attraction here? I mean, so
it's a soul
again,
tie, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, along with these guys, these psychiatrists and shit are saying, I mean, they're talking what they want to talk.
Right.
I mean, so does it really happen that way? I don't think so.
And it has
I mean,
to prove his field of psychiatry.
Yeah.
But my view on that reincarnation thing is, like we've talked about it, is that what it is, or are you, before you enter the body as a soul, you're watching TV, like you're watching Earth. You've seen all of this. So she saw you, or you saw her. There was a connection, but it wasn't reincarnation. It was that as a spirit, you're watching all of this. When you enter the baby's body, the undeveloped brain, you go into amnesia, and now these things come back to you as you get older, because you can't possibly remember it in an infant's brain. It's not developed yet to allow you to do that.
But then that's reincarnation,
No, you didn't live a separate life in a body. You can only live once as a human, but you, as a spirit, you can see everything. Or you're the other spirit attachment that now has brought its memories to make you think you lived again. So who knows? You ain't gonna know until you die. You won't know the truth until you're dead. So
it makes a tour.
So the spirits can bring their ailments to you. You are what you believe. If you're a doting parent that dotes on your child and you die, you then try to possess that child and attach to it because you can't let go. It causes a lot of problems, right? He says God is an intelligence similar to music, can't be seen. Now here's this interesting. The spirit world is 60 miles deep around the earth in the darkness. Now, I don't know if in the earth means in the earth, but I've read others that say that darkness is in the firmament around the planet. That's why I said in the prior episode, if you could take the Starship Enterprise and go into the darkness, wouldn't that be a cool episode, But it's 60 miles.
Well, maybe that's why they're having a problem with CERN.
Either, CERN, it's under the earth or above the earth, I don't know. But, when people look up, they're looking to heaven, they look down, they're looking to the middle ground or hell, He said spirit attachment is like barnacles on a boat. They're very hard to shake off. He said you got to focus and shut other thoughts out. Like when you having these thoughts, you got to really have a lot of self-control to keep these things from influence you. He said that belief in reincarnation causes spirits to enter young children. But if you're a believer in reincarnation, so now when you're a spirit, because you believe you can live again and you really can't, is what he's saying, that what the person you pick is not an 80-year-old, because you want to reincarnate, that's what you believe. You pick a 3-year-old because you're going to live a whole life again in this child. That's what he says reincarnation really is, because you can never really live again. And then you get trapped, because he says when you go into these kids and infants, you end up being trapped, is what happens. They can't get out. You lose your memories in the child's undeveloped brain, which is what I just said. And you can cause the kid a lot of problems because you bring your issues, right? He said Ouija boards are dangerous and invite these spirit attachments.
I agree with that.
Now here's something that's...
I will agree with.
Yeah, I agree with it too.
Now here's something interesting. I had a trip scheduled for Israel and I can't go. And then I'm reading this book and it says, once you're freed, you can travel all over the earth. You travel at the speed of thought. And he said, you can go wherever you want. So I said, oh, good. I'll go to Israel when I'm dead then. It won't cost me $6,000, right? Think about it. You can go anywhere, right? You travel at the speed of thought. That's what it is. You can learn all these other cultures. He says you can travel to other worlds. You could say, like Cosmic Ray. The first place he's going is Venus, right? You can go to Venus. You know, he says you can do all of that, right? He said in 1 year you can learn what it takes a person 12 years to learn, because you're basically going at the speed of thought is what you're doing, right? He says you cannot live a second life, but you can attach to a person. Life is like a candle. When it burns out, it's over. Earth is just grammar school. There's so much more to learn when you go to these other planets and beyond, right? We can transport our minds anywhere. Then the question came up, well, what happens to a child that dies? The child, most of the time, will attach to one of its parents. That spirit of the child will attach because they're still, you know, has that bond of a kid, right? He says all souls, even evil ones in this darkness area, they listen to music, and you can wake them up by counseling them and talking to them. They can be awakened also, even evil ones. He said there's some truth in all religions. Lost souls look to possess humans. There's no time. You said that in the spirit world. There's no such thing as time. First, you got to find heaven within you, right? Like the Bible, the Gospel of Thomas. You need to follow the golden rule. Everybody has a guiding spirit. You said that. And I tell you what, all the stories in here were very dark, lost, creepy, really, but he said mediums, right? Mediums are often possessed by Native American spirits. He said there's something about Native Americans and their beliefs different than Europeans, let's say, is that there's a connection there between mediums and Native Americans. I mean, they're very spiritual, right?
Well, I think Native Americans the same with Sky people, Bigfoot.
Yeah.
They got a connection to Mother Earth, whereas we don't.
Right.
We look at Mother Earth one way, they look at it as a different way.
It's natural resources to be used.
I've got Native American ancestry on both sides, my father and my mother's side. And
there you go. That's why you're a medium. See?
Right. And I also do have, and one of my spirit guides is a Native American. He's been with me for many, many, many years that I remember. I have several spirit guides that help me, but he's one in particular.
Okay. So he says that, well, this is probably true. There's no religion in the spirit world. Religion's all man-made, and there's 20, 30 different religions, right? Now it gets dangerous. Jesus was a great teacher, but he will not set you free. I think he found out the answer because this book was written in the 1920s, right? He says your mind creates your condition, right? You can find God within yourself. That was Thomas's beliefs. The supernatural is the natural, and I believe that science won't admit the supernatural, the preternatural, but it is, right? Proving the spirit world will destroy materialism. Think about that. If everybody really believed when you die, none of this comes with you, and your actions determine eternity, you're going to be less. I gotta have a Jaguar. I gotta have a BMW. You know, I gotta have a bigger house. You don't need any of those. If you really understand that none of this counts, you're here 80 years. You're there eternity. None of this is coming with you. There'll be less of a desire for materialism. You think about materialism. That really came.
What the hell would they do with a Jaguar or a Debit?
That's what I'm saying.
They're gonna be riding.
Ain't nothing. That's what it doesn't mean anything. It ain't coming with you. And you know, materialism really got a big boost. I think maybe with America, because we're so materialistic, and our Western culture spread all over, where everybody, women don't want to have kids anymore. They want careers, right? And you see it in Japan, South Korea. As soon as they're westernized, boom, got to have a career, got to have a car, I got to have this, got to have my own place. Nobody's telling me what to do. So the materialism, I think, really came out of America more than anywhere else. He was greatly influenced by Eastern philosophy, spiritualism movement that was big in the 1920s when he was doing this. He was very anti-Christian, and like I said, he made up that conversation with Madame Blavatsky. I don't believe that at all. So what did Jesus actually say? And we talked about this in a prior episode, so I'm going to hit it quickly. You know, he had said there's no heaven and hell. There's Gehenna and there's Sheol. He talked a lot about dying 32 times, but he didn't tell you what happens other than you're in this darkness. He didn't say you get tortured upon death. He talked about what happens at the end of time, end days, tribulation, that type of thing. He called it the kingdom, didn't call it heaven, but he did say you went to the outer darkness. He used fire and darkness to let you know that it's not going to be good. So we already covered this slide. He talked about the kingdom 167 times. But what's important here is that Jesus talked of the outer darkness. And this guy's book is, and a lot of the ones I just read, you know, to see if they agreed with him, and they did, was that you're stuck in this dark area. Well, here's the next book I read, Freeing Captives. She referred to Wickland's work. And let's see what she says, right? She said that 2500 BC, demons were commonplace. They caused these diseases and mental disorders. And I've always said, Fred, prior to Jesus, BC, they showed themselves. I think, you know, you look at Egyptian culture, Horus, Ra, all of those, the statue I got over there, they were fallen angels. They walked out with an animal head. They were 8 feet tall.
That's where you got problems there.
Well, yeah, it could be, you know, but I don't worship it. To me, it's a decoration like the King Kong picture on the wall. You know, I just walk past it. I never give it any thought, but people will agree with you on that, right? He said, this woman said, exorcisms have always taken place. In Persia, the first exorcist was Zoroaster. In India, the mother of Buddha was an exorcist, and in the Hebrew Jewish faith, it was King Solomon. 25% of Jesus's healings was casting out demons. So you can prevent these attachments by having healthy thoughts. When you lay down at night, and I've done this a few times, I try to look at the light before I turn it off, because then you still have that bright light, and you close your eyes and imagine it's God, Jesus. So visualize the light, angels, do what I just said, pray, have a positive attitude, and then you don't get these attachments, right? This is interesting here. The church exorcists will confront and command, right? But that only works on demons. It doesn't work on spirit attachments. And a lot of times, let's say a bad spirit attachment is misread as a demon. And they're trying to exorcise it out of you, and it doesn't work. Mediums try to reason with it. And I'm going to tell you real quickly what happened here. About 2 months ago, I always, from the day I moved in here 26 years ago, I get knocking sounds, especially at night. As soon as I lay down, there's a slow, steady tap. Sometimes it's on my headboard, the ceiling, that wall. There's always tapping sounds. So it's daytime. I go upstairs. I don't know why I use the bathroom upstairs. I go in the bathroom. I hear the tapping in the hallway as I went upstairs, and it comes, I can hear it coming down the hallway, tapping in my bedroom, tapping in the bathroom, which never happened before as I'm on the reading stool, let's say. I got pissed. I yelled at it, and I said, get out of here. You do not belong in here. You have no place in here while I'm doing my business. I really got mad. The tapping still, I went my bedroom. I could hear it down the hallway. I embarrassed it. I said to myself, this is a human spirit. It's not a demon, right? The other thing that showed up that smelled like rotting flesh, and I had all the activity, that was a demon. These are humans from this cemetery right here. So then what happened, I'm going to bed. This might be a couple of weeks later, and I hear the tapping in the hallway. I think I was laying down. I got up, and I deliberately went into the hallway, because it's always in the same place, right? And I said to it, I did what this book said, and I said to it, I have heard you for 26 years. I have always heard you. I don't acknowledge it. You're dead. I'm alive. Do you realize you're dead? You've been dead. I've been here. This is 2023 is the year. I read these books. What year do you think it is, right? And then I said, and this is so creepy, I said, I have heard you from the first day when you tapped on the wall right here in the hallway where the pictures of my 3 kids are. As soon as I said that and pointed right here, right there was a tap. Unbelievable. But then I reasoned with it. I said, you got to go to the light. You can't stay here. You're dead. I'm alive, you're dead. And I did what they said in this book to talk to him. Do you know? The tapping went from there back down the hallway. Each tap was less. And it's gone. Hasn't been back in about 6 weeks.
Really?
Hasn't been back in about 6 weeks since I reasoned with it. So I did exactly what it said to do here. Now, there are other spirits in the cemetery because I live next to a cemetery and they might come by, but my guess is that spirit went to the cemetery and said, oh, shucks, we can't scare him anymore. Let's go to that house. Yeah, good. As long as they're not coming here, you can go to the neighbor. And that neighbor stuff, they heard stuff next door.
Well, she should.
They heard stuff down the street, 2 houses down, when I was getting the big banging stuff and the blessed pendants drove it out that it couldn't get back in. It went to their houses, they heard it, but I don't want to get into that. So stages of death. It is a lot of similar. There's a soul review takes place. You got to be cleansed by the light. Negative sink. There's different levels. This is what they were saying. Like you talking about this happens, that happens. Well, there's all these different levels based on what you did. You're like a rock. You sink to your level. It could be the lowest level, right? There are ghosts and the souls wander and they get lost because there's a darkness. Poltergeists make noises. Some poltergeists can attach to humans. Personalities merge, and it's not really merge. They're both there, but you can gain certain talents. Let's say that person played piano or spoke a different language. Next thing you know, you got this interest, right? Let's see, possession can take over. Here's this. Easy to enter a body after an operation or a car accident or something like that. It becomes easy. A lot of these books I read said when you're in a hospital, that's when most spirit attachments take place. Because you go through the trauma of an operation, you're wide open when you come out of the anesthesia, that type of thing. You can't protect yourself. Anything that's stressful or a shock, a car accident, a divorce, easy to enter children. And the easiest one to enter is a newborn, but then you're automatically stuck because the brain isn't developed. Said suicides always remain earthbound, is what she said. There are elementals and non-human spirits also, and we agree with that. So how does the spirit choose? It chooses the person based on a similar personality, whether it's a weak person, an ill person, easier to get into based on their aura, same addictions, unfinished business, protect a loved one. You're the parent, you don't want to leave the kids, you want to protect them. Can cause multiple personalities and bipolar situations because now you got these 2 entities in you. There's no conscious communication back and forth, so that's why, when I misspoke before, you don't become one. There's 2 different things going on in your head, right? It causes a lot of confusion. It says when you get a spirit attachment or one's trying to get into you, you have this huge energy dump. Boy, that has happened to me so many times where all of a sudden it's like, I can barely stand up, Fred. I'm driving my car to the LA Fitness and it's like, all of a sudden it's like, where the hell's my energy going, right? What they're saying, that's a spirit trying to enter your body. It's a spirit attachment. It doesn't happen a lot, but I've had it happen a number of times, where there's this, they call them energy vampires or that type of thing, right? An energy dump. Most of these spirits get trapped. Sometimes you've given consent to this to happen prior to life. They're called walk-ins, and you prior said that they can do this, right? Angels never possess people. And some people, they attach to the person they wanted as a parent. Like you can choose your parents as a soul, and like they wanted you and they got me. So now when I die, I go and attach to you because you're the one I really wanted. That's interesting. Some interesting ideas, right? The types of invaders are deceased humans, right? Past life connections, thought forms. You can create this spirit by thinking about it. And a tulpa, right? Yeah. And he's actually talked to them, and he says you can tell it's a thought form. They don't really have a lot of memories and different things. It was a created spirit.
Okay, so now
talk to the camera.
Spirits and souls.
Talk to the camera.
Oh, spirit and souls. What is the difference?
You answer that one because they say you have
we're
grace
talking
and a
about
spirit.
Spirits doing this now. So what about our soul?
The soul is the software in your brain. Your brain's the computer hardware, but yet there's also a spirit of grace. You explain it, because I don't know.
See, for me, sometimes soul and spirit they're synonymous. They go together. So
That's the way I view it.
Yeah, you're a soul, but when you leave your body, then it's like your spirit. Do you understand? Like the soul is putting on this meat suit, and then when you finally say die, then you go into spirit.
Yeah.
So the soul transforms into spirit.
Okay.
It's hard to understand. There's a lot of stuff in religion too that's hard to understand. But it says they reside in haunted houses, which you talk about, or in cemeteries near a house, and then they visit that house. That's exactly what I've had.
Yeah.
It really is. Some are lost souls, and like I was saying, they'll call a priest in to exorcise you because you have an evil spirit. It scares the crap out of the spirit, because they're not a demon, and you got a priest yelling at them, Jesus Christ, and then, so now when he communicates with the spirit, he says, they were trying to exorcise me. What did I do? Right? They don't even know they're dead, and you got a priest yelling at you, right? An exorcist, right? He said to soft talk and persuade them, which is exactly what I did upstairs, right? And then you, like remote viewing, you can do this also. By Skype, or you can just channel it from a distance. Like I can do this for my daughter if, let's say, something was going on, and try to make this happen. It's almost like praying, basically. Like you're praying for the person, right? He says there's non-human entities, thought forms, tulpas that you conjure up, emotion forms that you create these things out of your own anger and pain. There are spells that people put on you, and for a long time I've wondered if there hasn't been a spell.
Yeah, I think there's one on
in 2015. All my luck changed around 2015, 2016. I'm serious. It was stock investments, dating, you name it. Everything seemed to go negative.
Yeah.
Can't get in the TV show anymore. All of that stuff. It's really like I felt somebody cursed me. Right? There are false protectors. There are nature spirits, and fairies and elves have morals. They're not like demons. They have morals to them. Spirit viruses can affect families through a number of generations. Demons absolutely hate humans, and then there are ET spirits from other planets that attach to you, because they could come. Right? We said once you get to that point, you can visit. Well, they're visiting here too. So any of the ETs that people see are the spirits of the ETs? According to this guy, that could be possible, right? So repeated thoughts can create a reality. That's the tulpas. White and black magic is bad. Ancient rites from old books. I tell you, I have never looked into or tried to purchase some of these old books with these old, like we did something on the language of the angels, but then there was Aleister Crowley's books, and I did not purchase those. I don't want to go near those because I've read too many times that this stuff is 100% real. There are demonic entities involved in this from these ancient deities. I don't want to go anything near it. I don't want to know about it, right?
Well, he was very dark. He was very, Aleister Crowley was very, very
yeah,
dark.
he was a self-proclaimed Antichrist.
Right, and anyone, and I apologize, but most people that follow that, it's pure darkness.
I agree. I don't go near it,
I agree.
So he says prayer works, and she gave an example during World War II. All the Christians got together and prayed that Hitler stopped the Battle of the Bulge, and mysteriously he all of a sudden stopped that and went somewhere else. So they felt they influenced him. Fear comes from Satan, trust comes from God. Group prayer works in hospitals. They've seen it work on patients. Exorcism frees the person from the entity, but no one tries to free the entity from its controller. That's an interesting thought, right? Nobody tries to help that entity from whoever made them do that. There are dark entities that were never human. They only exist when you think about it. So that's interesting, Fred. So if I never ever think about what happened again, it'll never happen to me again.
Yeah.
But it did pop up when I wasn't thinking about it. It was the first thing from my mind. So I don't know if that's really true, that you create the reality. You want to point out to them their pain, their situation. That's what I tried to do. Explain to that spirit, you're dead. You might not know it. This is 2023. I'm alive. So operations, transplants is where they attach to you. There's a lot of hauntings in hospitals, and they attach to you. You can make pacts made during great times of stress. They never forget about that, right? You forget about it because you said something out of frustration or stress, but they remember it forever, and they will come back to take their pound of flesh. They'll mark you for a lifetime or lifetimes. You need to command them to withdraw, and I think they're talking about demons here. Call upon the light, which are really angels. You reap what you sow. They can cause you to get a swollen ego, be confused, become overly ambitious. The dark ones, which are really demons, cause diseases, destroy relationships. These things happen during seances, and evil people have the dark entities attached to them. Another book I read, and we're going to go quick, we're almost out of time here. The Unquiet Dead, Signs of Possession, Low Energy, Mood Swings, Inner Voice. We'll talk about that. Jesus exorcised 26 spirits, but we'll talk about it in a different episode. Spirit possession. Earthbound spirits remain exactly as they looked at the time of death. So you don't get to choose, you want to look 20. That's why when people get drunk, they become a different person. You got an attachment. Children possessed, they don't want to let that entity go. They feel like it's part of them and they don't want it to leave. That's that childhood friend that I've never had, you know. Adults realize they're not the same, like there's two people in them. You can be possessed by the opposite sex, which wrecks your relationship, obviously, because if a woman is attached to you, you got a wife, well, she want to get and be with the wife, or it causes you, the LGBT movement is that. It's spirit attachments that have caused, think about all the gays and lesbians out there that, I mean, there's been 8 billion people supposedly that ever lived, right? They died. And there's about 8 billion, there's a little over 8 billion. So technically, every human being could have an attachment right now. There's as many dead people as there is living right now. Right. We're at that point. So what she's saying is that if you're gay or lesbian, it's not that you made a choice, not that you were born that way. You got an attachment. It's a female attached to you, right? Attached to the male, and she wants to be with a man. She don't want to be with, and that causes you to be gay. So, I mean, so many ideas, things I never would have thought of, and that's what they're saying, right? It drains your energy, right? You get night sweats, and it can cause phobias. Like all of a sudden you become afraid of heights out of nowhere, you know? It's because of this. So spirit entry, hospitals, operation, anesthesia, during grief times, if you're taking drugs, alcohol use, if you use Ouija boards or occult practices, seances, and the ones during the occult practices are the hardest to get rid of as opposed to a curse. Let's say if somebody curses you, it's easy to get rid of that. If you have imaginary friends as a kid, and some people genetically this happens to them, there's a weakness in their genes, past lives, mental patients. Oh, he says everybody in a mental institute and many of the criminals, right? Their spirit attachments is what it is. And then the next episode, The Exorcist says they all need an exorcism. Mental patients and criminals should be exorcised. Ghost hunting, you can pick up a spirit. A person's aura is like the immune system. It either protects you or it's weak. Most spirits don't know they're dead. They return to where they once lived. That's why you get these haunted houses. This is the last slide. You have animal reactions, electronic disturbances, knocks, items disappear, loud bangs, cold spots. I've had all of this. Shadows, a person at the foot of the bed. I saw it, and one time, it was in Jersey, and then one time on a trip, work trip, my girlfriend saw the same little kid standing at the foot of the bed. We both saw it. When touched, it feels like cobwebs. Do you know that happens to me all the time in this house, Fred? I'll be walking like through here, and all of a sudden I feel cobwebs on my. And I go,
That's fairy folk.
It's what?
Fairy folk.
Oh, okay. Well, he's saying it's a spirit trying, or spirits around.
Yeah.
I'm always doing that. I feel like there's a car. I go like, what is that? Like I just walked through cobwebs. Yeah. Now it happens when I go out the garage because there are cobwebs hanging from the door. You know, that happens all the time. All the time. I'm wiping my shoulder, saying, "What the heck?"
Because it's like their touch is that gentle. It's like you're walking into, or they want you to know that they're there, but they don't want you to see them.
But it's not negative, right?
No, normally it's not negative.
Okay, yeah, that happens all the time. Never invite them. Stay positive. spirits feed on negativity. Pray, life continues, and you keep your personality. And unfortunately, many people are nothing but puppets being used by something else.
Oh,
So
I
real
agree
quick,
with that.
closing comments, whatever you got to say. We're at the end of the, what do you think about this type of stuff? We're about out of time here.
I agree with everything you said there myself.
All right, anything to add? Because you have more experience in it?
I would argue the point about past lives,
Well, you believe in reincarnation
Right,
and different
right.
things like that.
because I've had my own experiences and what I've studied. There are a lot of, I do agree with, say, someone that has a mental issue, a mental asylum, or even in prison or what have you. They do have some form of attachments. I've actually seen it when I was working.
Oh, you saw it in the prison. You had that one prisoner that the devil was coming to visit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
saw it. I agree with that.
Just working with children. I was a teacher, special needs individuals for like mental, emotional, and physical needs, special individuals. And there was this one little girl. She was probably around 6 or 7, and the doctors had her on so much lithium that she should have been, like, it would have put down an elephant. Let's just put it that way. And I remember the one day she completely lost all control in class, and we had to remove all the children. And I literally, when she sat there and her eyes came up and they were pure black, she was possessed.
Jesus, pure black. They're either yellow or pure black.
Yeah.
Then you know the person's
and
possessed.
I was like, oh, this little girl
Jeez.
needs more help, and nobody would listen.
No, of
So
course they
it
won't.
was just because she had a mental disability,
Right.
or so they took her into the hospital. They did whatever they do, like a chemical drip to remove all the chemicals, but then they flooded her body with other chemicals. It has been,
And you can't drive it out when you're under all these drugs.
Right. But she was, when she lifted her head up and I stepped
Black.
back.
Can
and
you
I was-
imagine seeing black eyes in somebody, total black, no white? God. All right, that's our episode, and we'll see you next time. Next episode is the Pope's Exorcist. Thanks.